we still had like dial-up internet. So like when we tried, we had
Okay.
like one computer in my grandparents'
Yep.
house, and it wasn't really that fast. So I didn't want to do the coding courses. So I didn't major in computer science. I majored in
Mm-hmm.
the interdisciplinary major called science, technology, and I kind of made the choice internally of like, it's okay if I'm not a coder. Like other
Right.
people really like that, and that's awesome. They can use their talents there. I think I should use my talents in a place where I have more experience.
In this episode of the Keyboard Interrupt podcast, I sit down with a good friend of mine, Alema Fitisemanu, who is a UX designer. He gets into his story of his upbringing in the islands, as well as transitioning to living here in the mainland of America. We also discuss his experience at Stanford University, his struggles, his challenges, and his successes while he was there, what led him to his career in UX design, as well as his decisions to enter the startup world upon graduating Stanford University. Again, stop typing, stop scrolling, and just listen to another episode of the Keyboard Interrupt podcast. Enjoy this episode. Malo pito and toafatu. All right, what's up, everybody? Glad to have our guest on to our show today. Welcome, Alema, to our show, and just happy to have this opportunity to share your experience on the Keyboard Interrupt podcast. So, yeah, Alema, just if you could inform the people a little bit about yourself, your background. Yeah, just get into the introduction of who Alema is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks, Chris, for having me on. My name is Alema Fitisemanu. I'm a UX designer currently working at the company IDMe. We do identity verification, and the product that I work on most is our shopping product. So lots of retail design there. But I grew up, yeah, I was actually born in La Jolla Hospital in San Diego.
Oh, dang. So,
Yeah.
okay, so a little bit about that. Me and Alema actually used to live in San Diego together for a while, but I thought for some reason I assumed you had been born and grew up in Utah. So, it's very interesting
No,
that I
yeah.
got to know that about you. But and then you said you lived in Samoa for a little bit as well, right?
Yeah. So when I was about to turn 7, my parents moved us back to Samoa, to Western Samoa. We lived on Polo for 5 years before starting middle school back in the States. And so we moved back to Arizona right before middle school started. And so we could get like a better education here in the States.
Yep, yep.
And so that's how we kind of started back up in the States after we were living in Samoa for a bit.
Oh, nice, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, what was the upbringing like in the islands? Because man, you got that upbringing in the islands of Samoa, right? What was that like? I bet it's different from the states for sure, right?
Yeah, it's definitely different because I remember, like growing up in San Diego, like, oh, we've got like freeways and stuff like that. Everything's like built nice with like cement and
Hmm.
everything. And then I just remember we flew out of LA and landed in Apia, and then we landed during like the evening, so it was like pitch black. There's no street lights, so we're just going in the van
Yep,
like
yep.
into the like forest essentially. But it was awesome. We got to live there with my dad's parents and just have just a great upbringing there with all of our cousins. My dad's sister and her family, we shared a house for a few years there in Samoa. So basically just lived as siblings with my cousins and just enjoyed hanging out,
Nice.
playing sports at the church and all stuff like
Yep,
that. Yeah.
yep. That's the best life right there, man. I know how it is. Like growing up myself, I grew up in my grandparents' house, so I definitely know what it's like to share your household with like not only your own siblings, but like your cousins. Right? They become like your siblings.
Mhm.
What do you say was your favorite thing as a child growing up in Samoa? Like, what are some things that you remember the most?
Yeah, I think just being able to be there with my grandparents and see like how they're involved in like the local community and stuff, and they really taught us a lot about like how to be a good leader and stuff like that, and how to um, always watch out for each other and stuff like that. So that was probably the number one, was like our family being able to spend time together. And then second, I think, was just like the natural beauty. Is just like awesome to be there all the
I
time, like
bet. I bet.
just eating papayas, just chilling out,
Oh
enjoying your
man,
life.
that's the life.
Yeah.
Well, the papayas, man.
Yeah. So just being in the islands, and yeah, always being able to go to the beach and stuff was always awesome. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So I guess from Samoa, then you guys moved back to America, so you go to junior high and high school, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I started middle school and did high school here in the States. Yeah.
Okay, okay, nice. So during that time in like junior high, high school, or even in your upbringing, was like tech what was your relationship with technology at the time? Like, was it ever a thought, or like, were you that person that was ever tinkering around with stuff? What was that like?
Yeah, well, like in Samoa, we didn't really have access to like a lot of tech. We still had like dial-up internet, so like when we tried, we had
Okay.
like one computer in my grandparents'
Yep.
house, and it wasn't really that fast. It's like really old. But when you tried to like join the internet, it was all like screeching and stuff like that. So like
Yep.
before
Yep.
you wanted to play like space pinball or something on
Oh man, that was the
Cartoon
game. That
Network
was the game growing up. Yep. Yep.
stuff. Yeah.
What was the other one? Like Y8? Did you ever play that growing up? Or Shockwave? Those were like the other. Or Mini Clip. Mini Clip was another one.
No, I don't think we had that game. I think we just had pinball. But
The pinball
yeah.
and solitaire.
Yeah, solitaire. Yeah.
Yep.
We
Yep.
kind of just had to play cards on the computer. But yeah, so that was pretty much like all of it. Like I had a Nintendo DS, which was nice that my parents got me. So always loved video games. But yeah, I didn't really know anything about like the tech industry itself or like apps and or like coding and stuff like that. I just enjoyed
Yep.
I don't know playing games. It wasn't until like I started middle school that like I learned how to use like a laptop computer and how to like
Right.
type an essay on like Microsoft Word and stuff like that. So it wasn't until then I started to get acquainted with technology. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I bet so. Like growing up with in the islands with the whole dial-up computer that you guys had, I'm assuming like that was even the fact that you guys had that was in and of itself like pretty amazing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The fact that we had that
Like,
in
how
our
would you say
house was like,
like in the communities? Well, were you guys like maybe the only ones, or what was that like?
ye- I would say like maybe like if in like the richer communities or like kids in private schools, I think they probably had a computer at home. But I feel like for the
Right.
vast majority of people, yeah, having a computer in your house was like not really heard of. I think it's because
Right. Right.
my grandpa was trying to finish his master's degree. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
yeah, I think he was using his computer to like type up his essays and stuff like that. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. No, I remember like I think our my household too was it was very similar, right? Like we had one computer, but like there was like probably 40 people trying to fight over who was gonna play games on that computer,
Mhm,
right? So like that was my it was similar to yours. Like that was probably my earliest encounters with technology in and of itself, right?
mhm.
But yeah, so I guess what about in high school and junior high? What was that experience? Was there ever like a thought of getting into tech, or what was that like? Did you have any classes that were tech related growing up?
Actually, no. Throughout middle school and high school, like you kind of just like use your computer to do your like assignments pretty much. But I never really took any coding classes or like UX design classes at all. It wasn't until basically I got to Stanford that I started to understand like, oh, there's different jobs, there's different sections of tech that you can go into, and this is what they do. Like some people only do design, some people actually code the software and stuff like that. So I feel like in
Mhm.
middle school and high school, yeah, I was just using PowerPoint slides and and
Yep, yep. That was
Microsoft
like
Word. That
the
was
Microsoft,
yeah,
right?
that's pretty much
If you knew
it.
Microsoft, that was good for technology back then.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I definitely agree.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess before we get into that, man, this guy just dropped Stanford like it was nothing, man. Like, let's talk to that. So before you even went to Stanford, what was like? How did you? What was the process of getting into Stanford? Because that's Stanford is one of those top schools within America. So like, did you have a list of schools that you were applying for? What was that process? That whole process? Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, yeah. So I think kind of like starting with the upbringing and stuff, my grandparents are really big into education and making sure that
Hmm.
like we did well in school. So like even in primary school, they'd always reward us for like getting good grades or like,
Oh yeah, that was the best.
yeah, and I was like take you out for ice cream. I was like that was really motivating for me. But yeah, so I just tried to keep that all throughout middle school and high school, basically trying to do my best to like get good grades and everything. And so I had that good foundation. In terms of applying for schools, it wasn't until my junior year where we moved from Arizona to Northern California, and I was making friends there junior year, and a lot of my friends were older than me. They were like seniors, and they were applying to their schools and stuff like that. So it really wasn't until I was seeing like, oh, the schools that they were applying to that I started to get an idea of, oh, I think I want to look at these schools because they have these programs and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, junior year was really proactive in like researching all the deadlines and stuff for applications. And I think I visited Stanford one time for a water polo tournament that we had in Northern California, where we took a day. Like the water polo tournament was in the area, but we took a day just to go visit Stanford. And I remember like walking on the campus, and it was like sunny, and everyone seemed like they enjoyed this. They're enjoying themselves.
Yep.
I was just like, "Oh, I
So
kind of
the
like this."
campus got you, right?
Yeah,
The campus, the
yeah, it did, because I was like, "This is nice," and they had like the program that I wanted to go into. Actually, in high school, I wanted to study architecture
Oh,
going
okay,
into
okay.
Stanford. So actually didn't want to study tech at all.
Yep, yep.
But it wasn't until after high school graduated, I served my mission in Fiji, and it wasn't until after
Nice.
that I was like, maybe I should like look into tech, because it seems like it's like a big industry. It could be nice to go into. So that's how I kind of pivoted after I started school. Yeah,
Okay. Nice. Okay, so I want to go back just a little bit.
yeah,
So you said you had a water polo tournament that took you guys out to Stanford. Was that right?
yeah. I think
So
yeah,
were you doing water polo in high school?
yeah. So I did water polo and swimming as my like two sports in high school. Yeah.
Oh, nice, man. Man, that's cool, man. So I've had some friends in the past that have also been in water polo,
Mhm.
but it's crazy because like growing up, for some reason, I thought folks were just standing in the pool, like throwing the ball around.
Yeah.
Little did I know they're like swimming in deep water. So, like, talk to us about that. What's like the conditioning like? Because I know it's not easy to be a water, like, let alone swim. So the fact that you were a water polo player, like, talk to that a little bit. What did you love about it? What were the difficulties and challenges?
Yeah. I think water polo conditioning just it just sucks. It's just like
Yep, yep.
you're
Oh, I
just
bet,
like
I bet.
learning. So they call like the kick, like the egg beater kick, where you just have to
Hmm.
know how to hold yourself up or keep yourself up in the water. And so yeah, we did a ton of that. We used to like fill up the, do you know, like those big like containers of water that people have, that they just like kind of like put on like the stand where you can like drink water. I forget what it's
Yeah, yeah,
called.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
basically those huge jugs of water.
Uh
And so
huh.
we would fill up those jugs with like water until they were full, and then you have to hold that above your head and tread until it like empties out.
Dang,
And
man, that's
so
like
it's
some
like,
Navy SEAL training
yeah,
right there, man. You guys were Navy SEALs, man.
yeah. I was like, yeah. Some of those days were just like not very fun, but yeah. So it is intense. But I started playing basically in high school. So I started my freshman year, and then played all the way to my junior year. My senior year, Utah didn't have a water polo team that was close enough for us to go to,
Hmm.
so I kind of just kept swimming.
Right, right.
Yeah, but yeah, the thing that I love about water polo is just like the team aspect of it. Just love like
Hmm.
interacting with people, being able to see like everyone has different skills and stuff like that. So how to strategize and play together is pretty fun. So yeah, I just loved being with the
Nice.
team. Yeah.
Nice. And then another point I wanted to touch on too is you said you served a 2-year mission in Fiji, right? So can you talk to that for those who don't know what like a 2-year mission is?
Yeah. So in our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the youth are asked to serve missions, basically to help share the gospel of Jesus Christ with people who'd want to hear more about it. And so you get assigned to different places. And so I got assigned to Fiji. And so I was there for 2 years doing my mission there. And then I was able to learn Fijian and also Fiji Hindi, which was
Nice.
unexpected because I didn't know that there's
Hmm.
so many like Indian people in Fiji. But
Yep.
it's great because yeah, everyone's so nice and welcoming, and food's great. So I was blessed again to be there in Fiji.
Were you kind of already, I guess when you got there, was life similar to life in Samoa or like, you know what I mean? What was that? What were some big differences and things that you loved about being in Fiji?
Yeah, I think yeah, life was pretty similar in terms of like lifestyle, in terms of like the houses that were there and everything. So it wasn't like so much of an adjustment, which was good. I think the adjustment was probably learning like the Hindi language and like learning about like Indian culture and stuff like that because I had no
Yep.
experience learning about those things before I got to Fiji. And then just learning, yeah, leadership skills, communication skills was all great to know like there in Fiji. So yeah, I think those are the main kind of like highlights. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that. So you come back from this 2 year religious mission, and then you said you were already accepted to Stanford at that point. So was your plan already coming back? I'm going to Stanford immediately after you get back.
Yeah, so I got accepted my senior year, and I was able to defer for the 2 years. So just wait. They said like, yeah, you can come back after you're done with your mission, which was awesome.
Nice. And then you go to Stanford, and your thought process at that time, right, is you're getting into architecture, right?
Yeah,
So did you take classes in architecture, and then when was it that you switched over to your next degree?
yeah. So I kind of it was like over the course of my mission that I was thinking about like, oh, do I still want
Okay.
to go into architecture? And I think as I started to like research more into like the other programs that Stanford had, that I was like more curious into exploring more other things. And so when I first got to Stanford, I kind of started just exploring computer science first to see
Okay.
if I liked that. And then that kind of led me down the road of still being in tech, but ultimately doing design and not coding.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So that's interesting because so when I was going to school, similar story. Like I wasn't planning on doing computer science, but I switched into it. But I remember our computer science degrees were kind of split into three different areas. So one was AI, machine learning. The other one was cybersecurity, and then the last one and new one that came out my junior year that I was in college at the University of San Diego was is it human computer interaction?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So yeah, talk to me about that because that one is an area it was new to me, so I didn't really understand it. But you've gone that's the route you went down, right? Was the human computer is interaction, right?
Yeah, human computer interaction. Yeah, so that's ultimately the path that I went down. Basically, it means just like you're trying to understand like how people interact with like a computer or an app or stuff like that, so you can better design experiences for them. And so,
Hmm.
I basically did all of Stanford's human computer interaction courses, but actually, so I didn't want to do the coding courses, so I didn't major in computer science. I majored in
Hmm.
the interdisciplinary major called Science, Technology, and Society, where basically my track was human computer interaction, but instead of coding, I did a lot of like art classes instead, so like more visual design. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And I think that's a great point that you bring up because a lot of people that get into or are thinking about getting into tech or have never really heard about tech, sometimes the first I definitely thought this too, like a stereotype was you're gonna have to code, right, when you're getting into tech.
Hmm.
So like I think this is a great point you bring up is that even though you don't know how to code doesn't mean there's not pathways for you to get into tech, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So just like what you said there, you didn't really have to do any coding. But what are some of the technologies that you did have to learn in terms of getting into, I guess, UX design? And if you could also talk about what UX design is.
Yeah. So UX design stands for like user experience design. So basically, it's just designing how an app works and how it's displayed for people. And so, for example, like you can design how Facebook Marketplaces works and how easy it is for people to, send another person a link um, or design for like another use case. Basically, your job is to make the user experience as seamless and as intuitive as possible. And so you do that basically by making designs or mock-ups in Figma, which is design software that we use in the industry. And then you work with engineers who actually take your designs and put it into code. So you'd work with like a front end engineer who are some basically the on the stuff that you see on the app itself. So what photos and stuff look like on Instagram and everything, and then you might even work with a backend engineer, which is in charge of like databases and how things are stored in databases for that app and stuff. So yeah, there's a little breakdown of what UX design is.
Nice. And then would you say that folks have to get a degree? Because that's like a big thing in tech is like the degree or no degree, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like how heavy do you see a degree within UX design? How heavy does it weigh? You know what I mean? If you were to go back, would you still go the route you went? And what are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it is kind of like a mixed bag because you see people. I think what ultimately people want to see when you're applying for jobs is that you have like a body of work or experience that you have to bring to UX design. And so whether you've worked in another industry before and have taken like a boot camp to learn kind of like the skills of UX design, I think that's pretty valuable. I think it's also valuable to get a degree too, because that's like 4 years of studying that field, and you're wanting to apply that even further, so people know that you have a good foundation to take into your job. So I think it's kind of all about how you market yourself, like putting in the work to have the experiences you need, but also how you market yourself to employers to say like, this is my story. These are all the things that I can bring to your company as a UX designer. Yeah. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like both. Like you want to have a body of work, but also know how to market yourself to companies. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that. So, and then another question that I had was your like upbringing and all the things we talked about previously, right? How was that helped? How did that help you with your, I guess, when you were in college at Stanford, right? Because, like I said, Stanford, you're competing with some of the best, right? So,
Yeah.
like, what was the motivation there, and then what were some of the challenges you faced, right? Because there's obviously going to be challenges that came across while you're doing your degree at Stanford, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, yeah, definitely. I think um, having my upbringing, like with my family and stuff, like in the church and also like in Samoa, really gave me a great foundation going into Stanford. Just, just basic things like feeling comfortable about yourself that, like, oh, I've got different talents. Like, I believe that I can get better at things and I've got something to contribute. And so I feel like that was a huge plus, like having that family environment, like kind of like breathing life into you as a child, I think is awesome. But yeah, and that was definitely tested at Stanford because there's so much new stuff that you have to learn, and like you're not going to be good at first. You're not even going to know the things you need to know until you get there. And so, yeah, I think it's just about having like a positive attitude, patience with yourself, like even when things don't go well, maybe knowing like, oh, what things like you're naturally good at and maybe things that you're not so good at,
Right,
and
right.
knowing where you want to put your energy, I think is great. Because yeah, I was not very good at coding at
Yep.
Stanford, and but I've always been passionate about like design and art and stuff like that. So I kind of made the choice internally of like, it's okay if I'm not a coder. Like other
Right.
people really like that, and that's awesome. They can use their talents there. I think I should use my talents in a place where I have more experience, more talent for it. I enjoy it more. So that's why I went the UX design route. Yeah, but I would say, yeah, just expect there to be new things that are gonna come your way, and just
Yep.
expect things to take time to learn new things, or else you wouldn't need to go to school if you knew it all already.
Right,
So
right.
that's the point of school.
Exactly.
Just start learning and keep up with it. Yeah.
Yep, yep. All right. So another thing I wanted to ask to that point was, were there any other like Polynesians in your class? I know there's Polynesians that go to Stanford because my cousin went to school with you at Stanford, Tangalo, and my best friend Houston. You know what I mean? So what was that like? Was other than your like off campus, like other people you see on campus, were there any other Polynesians within these classes you were taking?
Yeah. So yeah, another my roommate Gabe Reed was also there at Stanford with us.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and then Lavani Namuni was there playing football as well, and so it was just great, like having like other friends who were like also were like from Utah or Samoa, Fiji,
Yep.
all there. It was nice. Like you kind of felt like home essentially
Right.
at Stanford. But in terms of like the classes, we took some classes together, which was
Oh,
good.
nice.
Kind of we took some like technology courses together, statistics, like some of the like foundational classes together, which was
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And yeah, they're always funny in class and doing homework and stuff together.
Right,
we
right.
might have not, we definitely weren't like the smartest together, but
Yep, yep,
we
yep.
always did our due diligence, which is like always
That's
good.
good.
Because yeah, statistics is like a hard class to do, but yeah, so we had foundational classes together, but in terms of like our different majors, we all kind of had to go our different ways in terms of
Hmm.
taking our own classes. So most of the time, like, yeah, I would be the only Polynesian person in the class, doing like design and stuff for like apps and everything. Like, and I didn't really know of anybody else like beforehand who's like already doing UX design in tech who was Polynesian. And so you kind of, it's kind of like the first time for yourself like doing these things. So um, you kind of just gotta like, you know, take everything in stride. Like you're gonna have your first times with everything, and then just take
Right.
it as experience for the next one. Be better on the next one. Yeah,
Exactly, right?
yeah.
No, thanks for that. And then so you did what year was it that you decided to switch over to human computer interaction?
So I started taking classes my freshman year, but I didn't
Oh, okay, okay.
declare until like my junior year. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Nice. And then so you graduated it from Stanford, and then I wanted to talk to this about you didn't you just had a startup, right? Was that with folks with that you had met in your human computer interactions courses, or was that they were doing a separate major?
Yeah. So yeah, I actually met one of my co-founders at Stanford because he was also from Utah, and he was
Oh, okay.
studying art history actually, and so that's where
Hmm.
we met. And then we weren't really like close friends all throughout Stanford. It was really after graduation he knew that I was in human computer interaction, so had like kind of more technical background in terms of design, and he was wanting to start up an art startup, basically solving the issue of finding art that you genuinely enjoy. And so I was doing my senior year. He graduated a year ahead of me and then started on the company, and then kind of contacted me senior year saying like, "Hey, what are your plans after
Right after
graduation?"
college.
I was like, "Oh, I
Yep.
want to get a job and start making money."
Yep. Exactly, man.
I was like, I'm ready to like stop being like poor essentially.
Broke.
I was just like,
Stop being a broke college student.
I know. I was
I
just
definitely, I know how you feel, man.
yeah, I was like, I didn't put all this work into like studying tech just to like not have the payoff in the end of like, you know, joining the industry and getting, you know, stable income. But he was just like, oh, we're thinking about starting this startup, and it's about connecting artists and art lovers and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Um, I'll have to like convince my wife to let me do it because
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to like make like a ton of money after school, and she would need to be the breadwinner and stuff like that. So
Right.
yeah, so started working on it. Our first iteration of the company during my senior year. I graduated and then was working on the startup full time. Also had like a part time job just to help with like rent and stuff like that. And then yeah, for the year and a half, 2 years after graduation, I was basically working on the startup with my friend Riley Haig, who also went to Stanford. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And I think that's where we initially met each other, right? Because that's when you had moved down to San Diego. Was that right?
Yeah, yeah. So we moved to California, Southern California, and then yeah, we met at the ward there in San
Right,
Diego.
right.
Yeah,
Nice, man. And then, so talk to us about that. Were you the only UX designer, and why did they bring you on as like were you a co-founder, right?
yeah.
From what I remember.
Hmm.
So what was the initial need for a UX designer? Was it to help build out their app and stuff, or
Yes.
talk to that?
So we're putting together like websites and also concepts for mobile apps because we felt like that was the platform that people would use most often for the use case. And so yeah, they needed someone to put together like what the design vision would look like, what all the different screens would look like for games and sharing stuff and interacting with artists. And so yeah, that was my primary job, was just to put together all the product designs for all the different concepts we're going through. And yeah, that was pretty much my primary focus. Yeah.
Nice. What would you say the biggest challenges and then also the successes that you guys had in this startup, right? Because the startup world's definitely not easy. So,
Hmm.
what were some of the biggest things you guys came across that you had challenge with, and then success?
Yeah, I feel like doing a startup, you really get to test like how bad you want it, essentially,
Right. Oh, I bet. I bet.
because you know you're putting in long hours, like not, and just kind of like things doing everywhere. So kind of like talking with artists to see like what they want out of an app, and then also making the designs and trying to make business decisions. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from doing a startup for like around like 2.5 years was your technical skills, like in design, are awesome and great, but also the flip side is like your kind of like soft skills and being able to get along with your co-founders and stuff like that on a day-to-day
Definitely.
basis. It's almost like you're
Yep.
married essentially.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like
Yep.
you just how you know how to interact with each other, make each other like feel good that we're all going in the same direction, communicating when there's like issues of like, oh, I don't think we should do this event or go this direction with the business, and being able to communicate that effectively is as important as doing the actual work of like building the app, designing the app, and stuff like that. Because if you mess up your relationships with your co-founders, then essentially the business just starts to like crack. And so I feel like that was a big learning experience for me. Is like, oh yeah, soft skills really matter, and how you treat people on a day-to-day basis like matters. And so I think it's definitely an underrated skill that people should have just in their daily jobs. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a common thing across the board, right? Is those soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
I myself, like, am always trying to work on that because I think the technical side, people think the technical side's the hard part of what makes helps you like, or the hard part of trying to get a job within tech.
Yeah.
But man, to be honest, a lot of the times it's your soft skills. If your soft skills aren't up to par,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like you can build an app or code up an app. If you can, anyone could do that. But like to convey like the story of how you built it, the reason why you built it,
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the harder parts to get across, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the tech industry. So it's definitely an area that we all are trying to perfect and to work to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And then so after the startup, like what eventually happened, and then like what was it that made you transition to your next role within tech?
Yeah. So we tried like three different ideas, just improving on the one after the other. But ultimately, we reached a point where like we couldn't get the funding that we needed to continue the project. And so my wife, she basically gave me like, oh, you have 3 more months. And if you guys can get the funding, great, you guys can continue. If not,
Yep.
I'm going to need you to start applying to jobs. So
Right, 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 right.
basically, that was the deadline that was set, and we
Mhm.
weren't able to make the funding deadline. So I just started applying to jobs, and basically that's how I started to look into IDME. My manager, he's actually from Hawaii, and I started
Oh, okay.
following. Yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's a Polynesian guy, there's a Hawaiian guy
Yep,
in UX design. Like I've never seen that before. And then also he's like the VP of design of this company, and I've never seen someone like that high up in a company
yep.
as well. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna follow this guy and see what he does.
So complete stranger, right? Like you don't have any former connections with him?
Yeah, no, I just like noticed like he had like a Hawaiian name and was in
Yep.
design and was starting at this company. I think I was just saw it like scrolling through LinkedIn. I was like, he seems like a cool guy, so I'll just follow him.
We might be related.
I was like, I'll see where this goes. And so like I actually started following him like a year before like we ended the startup, because I
Yep.
just wanted to see like what he was doing at IDME, just to keep in touch. And then it wasn't until that 3 months where I was like, okay, I gotta start applying to jobs, that I like messaged
Yep.
him and I said like, hey, like my name's Alema, I'm in UX design, like if you have any like contract work or anything that you need done, like let me know, like I'm open to opportunities right now. And so that's how we got initially started. And then he was just like, oh, we don't have anything right now, but I'll keep you in mind. And then a few weeks later, he's like, actually, like all of our lead designers are going on PTO for 2 weeks
Yep.
after like in like a week or two. And so we need someone to help fill in the gaps. And so would you
Right.
be open to doing a contract? And so I was just like, yeah, awesome. Like I'd like to get started. And so that's how I started at IDME. Yeah.
Nice. Man, thank you for sharing that. Like I think it's important to note like the challenges you go through in a startup, right? And then you're gonna have your ups and downs, and then ultimately there's times where you just gotta
Cut
you gotta
it.
cut it,
Yeah.
right? If an
Yeah.
idea doesn't see the success like how you say it's, I think it's good, that you mentioned that. And I appreciate you for sharing that, because it's not easy to, let alone end college and then tell your family that I'm gonna go join a startup rather than like, you know what I mean. So I appreciate you sharing that, and then also goes to show the importance of networking, right? And like networking with folks and trying to just see what opportunities are available. But I guess when you're networking with this person at ID did you have to have like a portfolio? Because within tech, usually like you have to have some type of something to share. Or in UX design, what's that process like in terms of other than just your resume? Aside from your resume, what are some things you have to have in your pocket or your toolbox?
Yeah. So as a UX designer, you definitely need to put together a portfolio, a digital portfolio. So you'll need to put together a website, basically listing out all the different projects that you've done so far, so you can show people like this is what I can do essentially, and hopefully I can do the same thing for your company. So that's a website, and you can make one using like there's lots of different like website builders out there. I think that you can use like a WordPress site or something. So you
Yep.
put that together. You make sure you have at least like 3 to 5 use cases, or not use cases, case studies of all the different designs that you've done and why you made the decisions that you did. What were the iterations of the designs? What were the final ones that you ended up going with, and for what reasons? And then also like the impact of your designs. So if you were able to move the needle and like, oh, only 3% of people would click on the button to buy the pair of
Hmm.
shoes after my designs were implemented, I've raised that up to like 10% of people were able to wanted to click and continue buying the shoes. And so, yeah, so you want to have that for like 3 to 5 different use cases and be able to talk about it once you interview for companies. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. And then, so your role right now, what's the title called? Is it just UX designer?
Yeah. So, UX designer. So, I'm technically like, how do I say this? Like, uh, I'm in like the middle, like a middle class, like
Yep, middle class.
middle class. I'm not like one of those rich designers yet,
Yep, yep.
but
I'm trying to get up to that level too,
I
man. I
know.
think I'm lower
I
class right
know.
now.
We're in here. We just
Yep,
gotta be in
yep.
here. But yeah, mid level. That's what they call it, mid level designer.
Hmm.
And what was good about this was they saw my, because initially when you first start out, you'd be like an associate like level designer, or like just kind of like an entry level designer. But they saw my experience with the startup, and they appreciated like all the kind of like learning that I went through for the startup, like business experience on top of design experience. And so they're able to bring
Yep.
me in when they actually hired me up, like they're able to bring me up to the next level of mid level UX designer. So that was a big plus
Hmm.
that I didn't know was going to come from doing the startup. Yeah.
Nice. So, what's your day to day like as a UX designer? What's that look like? And then I guess, are you remote? Are you on site? What's that like?
Yeah. So luckily I'm able to be remote here in Hawaii, which is like a huge plus.
Nice, man. You got it
I
good.
know.
You
I
got it
was
good.
like, my manager, he really went to bat for me. Like when we were going through the hiring process, they're like, "Oh, like does Alema like wake up on time? He's gonna have to wake up at like 5 a.m." He's just like, "Yep." Like he's never like missed like a morning meeting or something like that. And so they're able to get me hired remotely. So I work remotely from here in Hawaii. I wake up at like 4:50 a.m. and then work until like 1 p.m. So I start
Oh, because you're
early.
trying to catch the mainland time, right?
Yeah, yeah. So most of the team is on the East Coast actually. So
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of like 2 hours behind them in terms of like starting work, and so I
Yep.
try to make the overlap as much as possible. But it's also good because you end early, and so you get to do
Yeah.
what you want with your day, which is nice.
Go to the beach.
Go to
Go
the beach,
swimming.
yeah. Go work out, do groceries when no one's shopping. It's
Yep.
great. And my day to day basically in the morning kind of starts with check in meetings. So we have these meetings called stand ups for those who aren't in the tech industry. It's basically a short meeting where everyone goes over like what they did yesterday and what they're working on today. So everyone is on the same page. And so I kind of work on like two different teams. And so kind of go to both of those meetings in the afternoon. It's basically a lot of design time. So I start working on projects or continue working on projects that I've done before, working in Figma. So yeah, making frames, making like buttons and text and stuff like that. And then at the end of the day, I might have a few more meetings or just like updating Jira documentation. So making sure
Yep.
you're clocking the time that you spend on every task. And so people can understand where you're spending your time. And yeah, that's pretty much my day. Yeah, do that 5 days a week. Mondays and Fridays are usually like start of the week meetings, end of the week meetings to see what everyone's accomplished. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much my day to day.
Nice. So would you say I heard you mention this is the second time you mentioned Figma. So is that like a big technology? Definitely for anyone trying to get to UX design, it's like a must know technology to get into UX design.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely like the industry standard. Everyone uses it to design their screens and stuff like that. It's also great for developers to know exactly like how high is this thing, or like how wide is it, and what exact color is this button. And so it has all those details. So it's definitely the industry standard. So if you're looking to get into design, just start trying to design things in Figma to get yourself acclimated, and you get better over time. Like you learn shortcuts and stuff like that. But yeah, just get
Mhm.
started.
Are there any other tools you would recommend folks learn to get into UX design? Like, do you guys do anything with Adobe, or what other tools are you guys using aside from Figma?
Other tools, I think Figma is pretty much the only one. Like it's got everything you need. I think
Okay.
when before like Figma, people used to use Sketch, which was
Hmm.
iOS, but Figma is able to go from Windows to iOS, so it's like cross kind of
Okay.
platform, which is
Cross
nice.
compatible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think before we even had Figma and Sketch, people were using like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop to
Yep.
like put things together. I don't think that's pretty much the case anymore. Like we're pretty much all on
Figma's kind of
Figma.
taken over it all, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it's got all the different tools you need in one thing. Yeah.
Nice, I appreciate that. And then, what do you do to kind of like, all right? So when people think tech, obviously they think most of our day is spent at the computer. But what do you do to go outside, or what do you do to like in cybersecurity, or a lot of people say like go touch the grass.
That's right.
So like, what do you like to do so people know that you don't just sit at your computer all day?
Yeah, well, so we recently just moved into like our new apartment, and my sister moved in with us as well, and so she's here.
Nice.
We're able to split rent and stuff, but we've been pretty like adamant about like going to the gym like right after work, and so
Yep.
to get your body moving, because you know you can be quite sedentary like throughout the day,
Exactly.
and so I think that's definitely been helpful. We don't really have like good sidewalks where we live now, but when we were living with my wife's family before, they have got good sidewalks. So I try to go on like a 30-minute walk like in the middle of the day,
Yep.
just to like get myself thinking like new ideas or try to be creative, because it's kind of hard when you're just looking at the same
At the
screen
screen. Exactly.
all day. So I think anything to get your body moving is a great way to help yourself feel better or like
No,
yeah,
I
better
definitely
mood.
definitely agree with that because like especially with anything we do, you definitely have to take a break from the screen to regenerate ideas or get the brain to relax a little.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I've definitely been there where it's like either I'm coding something up or I'm working on something and like the ideas just aren't flowing. So you gotta go take a break and relax the brain a little.
yeah, yeah. I think knowing if you're feeling yourself just hitting a wall or not being effective, it's time to switch the task, because you can only do so much to like force yourself to do things.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so I think that's great advice.
And then what advice would you give to like Polynesians within the community that are maybe like graduating high school considering UX design, or maybe folks that are trying to make like a switch in their career? What advice would you give to those folks to getting into UX design?
Yeah, I would say for people in like middle school or like high school, I would say if you're interested in it, the just start watching like some YouTube videos or stuff just to get familiar with it, see if it's something you really like. I think that's always good to do. I think there's also might be some like local programs if you could do those like at your library or something like that. If your school has tech classes, just try it out to see if it's something you like to do, because not everybody like likes doing tech, and so you can
Exactly.
see if it's something you really want to do. For people in college, I would say if you're interested in going into tech, like start to like one take classes to see like if it's something you want to get serious about, and build on those classes throughout the year, so that you can build your foundation before getting in your first job. And then I also suggest during your summers or your breaks like to find internships in the industry, and it could be very small. Like at first, my first like job was essentially like designing a website for a local family or a local guy here in Hawaii who was trying to start up his startup and hadn't gotten like a full-time designer, and so It's like, oh, you can take the first crack at it, essentially. So that's how you start building slowly. So that once you are graduated, you've had like a string of experiences, so that when someone looks at your resume, they say like, "Oh, you've been dedicated, or you've had the work that you need to get started." So I think that always leaves a good impression for people. Yeah, making the switch, if you've already had a career in a totally different industry, I would just be very intentional about how you tell your story and what experiences that you can bring from your previous line of work into design. So in design, we're always looking for problem solvers, always looking for people who know how to work in teams and know how to communicate with each other. And then you can also talk about like, oh, if you've like done any like visual or design stuff before and how that went as support with coming into design. So yeah, that would be my advice for kind of the different phases of career.
Man, I appreciate that. And then I guess the last thing to close us off here is there any future projects that you're working on the side or anything you want to share with folks or how they can get in contact with you if they're interested in getting into UX design?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can just Google Alema Fitisemanu. Yeah, just click on the one that has like the that's in UX design. The other one's probably my dad. Yeah,
Oh, right, 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 right. Yep.
yeah, and he's not in UX design, but or he'll just point you to me
To
if
you.
you if you message him. He's nice. But yeah, so contact me on LinkedIn. I can probably send you my LinkedIn profile link.
Sounds good. I'll make sure to add in the comments.
Yeah, but in terms of like future projects, nothing really outside of work for now. Like I feel like once I'm done with work, I usually don't think about UX design.
Right, right. No, I get you. I get you.
But yeah, I think I've just been trying to get involved with like the local tech community here in Honolulu. So if you
Nice.
if you're here and go to any of the Thrive Hawaii events or Honolulu Tech Week, you can probably meet me there, and we can always talk. But yeah, other than that, I've just no current projects right now outside of ID.
No
Yeah.
worries. Would you say? Oh, sorry. Before we end off, would you say before you had your job, were you doing more projects to like build your portfolio, and then after you got your job, you stopped doing projects?
Yeah, I would say definitely because you have a ton of projects that you need to do for your job.
Right, right,
So it's like it's like day in day out you're going to be working on projects, and so now I feel like you can your perspective kind of changes because like before your job you're just like, oh yeah, I'm doing all these different things, like please hire me
right.
essentially.
You have your hire me sign. No, I'm glad. I wanted to point that out because I was in the same boat as you. You know, before having my like full time career.
Mhm,
Now it's just gaining experience. But prior to that, like I definitely was the same boat with you, where I was trying to build out my portfolio. Like I was trying to create games or code up different things
mhm.
and just add to my portfolio. So when people ask me like, "What do you do on your spare time?" Like, "Oh, I do this and this."
I'm
But
all
like
about
now,
coding.
I'm all about coding. My life is coding every day, every night. But now it's like, man, I just chill with my family. So,
Yeah,
but I just wanted to point that out because some folks might not understand the reason why you do these side projects, right?
yeah,
But definitely now it's just chill time, right?
yeah. You just yeah, you kind of like once you kind of like made it into the industry, your life kind of changes to that because before like, oh, I was trying to do all these things to like grow as a designer, like put myself together, but in your job there's just like so many more opportunities to grow, or like you're always working on something new, and so you can I think that's also good to know is that you want to keep track of all the projects that you've done even in your job, so that if you're moving into another position in the future, you got that still building on your resume. But yeah, I don't really do it as much in my free time anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Oh, thank you for sharing your story today, Alema. Appreciate you being on the podcast today, and thank you guys for tuning in. That'll be our episode for today. All right, bye bye.
Thank you.